All right, let's talk about something that's coming for most of us, but almost nobody's ready for. I mean, really think about it. Who are you after the job is gone?
Yeah, that's the real question, isn't it? It's a total gut punch, and it's the whole reason we're digging into this today. What happens when that title, that identity you've spent decades building, just vanishes?
And for a man named Daniel, this wasn't some abstract philosophical question. At 55, he came face to face with it, and the answer, or really the lack of an answer, it almost wiped him off the map.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning, which was really the beginning of the end for Daniel's old life. This first part is all about how quickly you can start to feel like a ghost in your own story. And look, Daniel's story isn't some rare thing. It's actually incredibly common. A staggering 75%, that's 3 out of 4 people, say they lose their sense of who they are after a big life change like retirement. So he wasn't alone, not by a long shot. He was one of millions feeling the exact same way. For Daniel, it all happened so fast. I mean, 25 years at one company, an entire career of being someone important, and it all ends with a party and a gold watch. Then, the next morning, poof, everything that structured his entire adult life was just gone. No business cards, no office to go to, no real reason to even get out of bed.
And this right here, this is the absolute core of it. He wasn't just sad, It wasn't just about being depressed. It was something deeper. He felt invisible. Because the one thing that made him visible to the world, his job, was gone.
But a void that big, well, it doesn't stay empty for long, does it? For Daniel, that empty space got filled up, all right? It got filled with the suffocating weight of his own past.
You know that peace and quiet you're supposed to get as a reward for decades of hard work? For him, it wasn't peaceful at all. It was deafening. The silence of his inbox, the lack of phone calls, it wasn't a relief. It was like a constant alarm bell screaming that he just didn't matter anymore.
Just picture it for a second. You're looking at all the awards on your wall, all the proof of a life well lived, and you feel nothing. You feel completely disconnected from them. It was like they belonged to someone else, a stranger who just happened to look a lot like him.
So his past, it literally became his prison. It was a comfortable prison, for sure, like a favorite old armchair, but it was the kind of comfort that suffocates you. It trapped him in memories of the man he used to be and made it impossible to even imagine who he could become. But here's the thing. It's often in these moments of total despair that something new can finally start to grow. This was his turning point. This is where all that pain finally turned into a reason to change.
He hit rock bottom. He looked in the mirror one day and just didn't recognize the person staring back. And it wasn't because he looked older. No, it was because he looked undefined. Just a blank slate. The man who was what he did for a living was gone, and this stranger was left behind.
And there it is again, that question. Who am I when I'm not what I do? But this time was different. It wasn't just some nagging thought in the back of his head. He was finally looking it right in the eye. He was asking himself, and just the act of asking, well, that changed everything.
So he had a choice, a real fork in the road. On one path, he could stay stuck, be the victim, forever defined by the job he lost. Or, on the other path, he could start fresh. He could become the creator of his own future. And this brings us to the really important part of this whole story, the how, right? How do you go from feeling like a ghost to actually building something new? Well, Daniel figured out a framework. Let's call it the 4 pillars of intentionally rebuilding yourself.
And this is the absolute key takeaway. Your new identity, it's not going to just show up on your doorstep one day. It's not something you find under a rock. It's something you have to build, intentionally, brick by brick.
And check out how simple his first step was. It wasn't some huge, complicated plan. He just bought a journal. And on day 1, he wrote down one question. What matters to me? Not what did I used to do, but what matters to me right now? He asked himself that every single morning for 90 days. And that one simple act completely rewired his brain and eventually led him to do something he hadn't done in 30 years.
And through that whole process, he landed on these 4 pillars. Step 1, values. Figure out what actually truly matters to you. Step 2, skills. What are you uniquely good at? What can you offer? Step 3, contribution. How can you use those skills to help other people? And finally, step 4, connection. Who's your tribe? Who do you belong with? That was his blueprint for building a new life.
So what's the big lesson here from Daniel's journey? Well, it's about completely reframing what life after a career can even mean.
And listen, this isn't just some feel-good story. The data backs it up. Research shows that people who actively rebuild who they are after 50 report a 70% higher life satisfaction. That's not just a little bump. That is a fundamentally different, better quality of life.
So what about Daniel? At 70 years old, the word retired just doesn't fit. He's redirected. He took all that energy and passion and pointed it at things that he actually cared about. He's not winding down. He's never been more alive.
Because here's the thing. Your identity isn't some monument to your past that you just sit and look at. It's the open road ahead of you. Daniel's story proves that it is never, ever too late to start building. So the only real question left is, who will you become?
Research shows that people who actively rebuild who they are after 50 report a 70% higher life satisfaction. If you want to be among them, subscribe now for more psychological life stories. Turn on notifications. Your journey starts now. You are not alone. Make it count. See you in the next video.